Hey, it's Mazzy here. Welcome to the Japanese Vinyl Tag 2024. I don't think there's been a vinyl tag out of Japan or Japan-centric ever. This is the creation of Tokyo Style, a channel on YouTube. He also has a pretty nice Instagram feed. Brian out of Tokyo, expatriate American who now has been living in Tokyo for 20 years. And so watch his channel because Tokyo Record Style, he will showcase collectors, record stores. He'll ride around on his motorbike through the streets of Tokyo and the outskirts, showcasing Japan from a expat's point of view. And it's very entertaining. And I'll put a link below to his channel. He started his vinyl tag. I don't do a lot of vinyl tags, but vinyl tag 20 questions, 20 prompts. And I thought this was really interesting once I actually read the questions. And it's a wonderful way to pull out other things from your collection that you may have not pulled out before, or at least recently, and even listening to. I've been listening to these records over the last several days as well, a little bit, not all of them. And there are other people on these YouTube channels, these vinyl channels have been responding to this. So here we go. Question number one, Obi-Wan. Get it? Obi-Wan, double entendre there in a way, showing a record with an Obi. I just went to basics from my collection. Probably the first Obis I ever got were the entire Beatle collection. The Obi is the paper strip here. I think it translates literally to belt, and it has the information of the titles. Of course, American reissue companies have emulated that. Companies like Light in the Attic, Rhino, High Fidelity do have the Obies, their versions of Obies on here. I have the entire Beatle collection, Japanese versions of all the American and the UK editions. I will say, if you're looking for this for collector purposes, great. But for sound purposes, even though Japanese pressings use great vinyl, usually really good, the EAS series, they're not great. They're from, second, third generations. But I wouldn't get them if you want these for your primary listening copy. Now I have everything. Of course, this is Please Please Me with the Obi number one. These were put out in the 70s into the 80s. So I've had those in my collections for many a year. A Japanese band or artist. I'm going to show Akiko Yano. I love this cover, and that's the main reason I'm showing it. But this is a fantastic album. My friend Michael, Poetry on Plastic, who's into Japanese city pop, very much into Japanese records as well as classical music, turned me on to this. I think we met up in Portland, and when I saw this cover, he said, buy it, buy it. Now, she was married for a while to Ruichi Sakamoto from Yellow Matter Orchestra, and a lot of collaborators with a lot of artists that I like, David Bowie, David Sylvian, all the Davids, all the Caucasian Davids. She's basically, they refer to as the Japanese Kate Bush. She's got that vibe, that artistic pop rock vibe. Incredible. I have 3 of her albums now, and this is probably my favorite. But I just love this, these cover photographs. Pretty hysterical. So that is Akiko Yano. Next is Sunrise Soundtrack. And when I think of sunrise, like sunset, it's kind of this mellow opening thing. And this is a reissue I got in the last year. This is Hiroshi Yashimura. This is a record originally released, I think, in 1982. And this is a reissue. He's considered sort of the father of Japanese ambient music. This is a very surreal ambient record. And this is called Music for 9 Postcards. And it's very surreal, very chill. So this is a perfect record to play. Sunrise, of course, there's another Obi, but a fantastic ambient record. Next is City Sounds. Show a record with a city vibe. I'm going to show 3 here. These are records that were issued here by Light in the Attic, and I think there are more volumes now, but I bought these, and these are just fun records to put on. They're comps, and they're called the Pacific Breeze Japanese City Pop AOR and Boogie, 1976 to 86, 72 to 86, 75 to 87. 3 beautiful volumes. I love the artwork. This was the first one that I got into. And it's just city pop music that it's very dance oriented, very upbeat in the disco soul realm of Japanese music, but a fantastic collection. Pacific Breeze. This is a great intro to city pop. Again, I am not an expert like many other people with city pop, but I just love this series of records. Each one, they're double records each. And again, Light in the Attic put them out. And of course, like everything else, Light in the Attic also has their version of the Obi. So Obi-Wan is plentiful in this video. Next is Zen listening. I took this literally. In 1964, there was a American jazz artist by the name of Tony Scott, and he put this album out with 2 other Japanese musicians. I got into this album in the 1970s because for whatever reason, this stayed in print. Well, whatever reason, it's a popular record, but obviously being in San Francisco, Northern California in the 70s, the whole Zen thing was massive, well, at least on a regional label, you know, post 60s hippie music for Zen meditation. Every time we'd play this in the store, we'd have this in the store. We'd go through a box a week, 25 copies of this record. And we were a small store. So this is my copy from the 1970s, Music for Zen Meditation. It's he's a reed player, flute player, saxophone, but mostly clarinet actually too. Just a beautiful, beautiful record. Music for Zen Meditation. This was on Verve Records, so it's kind of jazzy, but it's very chill. It is literally a record to meditate to, and it's a wonderful record. And I think you can kind of usually find it fairly inexpensive. Go Godzilla! Show a record that destroyed your musical expectations. That is such a loose concept question, but I'm going to go with this David Sylvian record. David Sylvian, the connection here in a lot of ways is he was in a band literally called Japan out of the UK, but when he went on his own, once he left Virgin Records, this is the first record he did on his own label, and it is a stunner. When I heard this, it was so different. Electronica, jazzy, moody. He's got the low, brooding baritone voice. And it's very a Zen-like record too. There's a lot of effects with pedals and amplifiers and guitars and keyboards on here. I just think this is a stunner. Of course, he also collaborated with Ryuichi Sakamoto, as I said earlier, and many other artists. Herb, was it Arkinson, the Norwegian trumpet player, and did some great things. And this, to me, is a spectacular album. This is an album I'll turn on to people and they either get it or they don't. It's not for everybody, but there's a certain mood to this. I was so excited 2 years ago when Universal finally put this out on vinyl now, because the original vinyl was going for hundreds of dollars, and I just kind of waited. I got CDs, I got his box set. I'm an all-in David Sylvian person. So he does have sort of a very Japanese meditative aesthetic to all his records, and this is amongst my favorite. Next is Ahead of Its Time. Share a record that was ahead of its time. I'm staying in the Japanese adjacent. It's a Japanese woman, and that's the debut Yoko Ono record. When John Lennon did his Plastic Ono Band record, Yoko did hers. This is a monster of a record. Ornette Coleman plays on one cut, the avant-garde artist. They knew each other. They worked together over the years a couple of times. And of course, this is the companion piece to John Lennon's Plastic Ono Band with an early shot of Yoko Ono. This influenced so many artists, mainly getting into the later punk and post-punk scene, bands like B-52s, artists like the Au Pairs, so many others of that kind of beat, very percussive and heavy bass sound too. Obviously, the avant-garde vocals are not for everyone's taste of Yoko Ono, but this album, I would argue, is a groundbreaking album ahead of its time, definitely, from John Lennon, 1970, and Yoko Ono. Then we got Take a walk, man. Show an album suitable for dubbing to cassette to the classic Sony Walkman. I used to make cassettes, tape them from my turntable, my record player, and make comp tapes for myself. This is the record that I got last year. I picked up on one of my drives to Northern California, and it is an amazing record. I picked it, I didn't know the music, but it just looked like a really interesting comp. And this is Nippon Acid Folk 1970 to 1980. This is Japanese folk music of various artists. I don't know any of these artists. I don't think I knew any of these artists, but this is fantastic. Mostly acoustic bass, not totally. It's just a great comp, and I could totally see walking around Japan or Golden Gate Park through the Japanese tea gardens by the De Young Museum and playing this on my Walkman or a Discman or any man, portable man. Wonderful comp. I highly recommend this. I have showed this before when I picked it up, and this has been in my heavy rotation still. I haven't filed it away yet. Okay, next we got Lost in Translation. Share a record that takes you to a different world. I've been staying a lot with Yoko here because she's an artist, avant-garde artist, experimental, crossed over into pop. And I'm going to show this. I don't have this on vinyl. My guess there was a limited edition, but I don't know. Never got on vinyl, but I've had the CD and the remix CD. And this is Rising, Yoko Ono and IMA. And this is a very different Yoko record. There's some really interesting mood to it. I happened to pick this up from the Wiz at $9.98, not open. I don't know why. It might have been on sale, half price. Figures, right? But there's a certain mood to this, some acoustic guitar, some Yoko slow, moody moaning. And I just think this takes me to another world. And I just think this is a fabulous record that a lot of people don't know about. Rising, there's also a CD of remix Rising that goes on, like there's tracks that go on for 15, 20 minutes, as I recall. And it's just a really wonderful mood to it. So I highly recommend those who like the Yoko thing, different totally aesthetic than the last Yoko album I showed, the Plastic Ono Band record. Love that record to pieces. I'm sticking with Yoko for a little bit here on the next question. Something you'd like at a Japanese vinyl bar, sort of a whiskey bar. Usually they're whiskey bars in Japan. There's one here. It's not whiskey-centric, but it's modeled after those vinyl bars where you can ask the bartender DJ to play music. And I always think of this record. To me, this is an amazing record, possibly the best thing Yoko ever did with John Lennon. And tragic because it was literally the last music probably John Lennon ever heard. And when he was killed, he had a copy of this cassette. They just finished mixing it that evening in New York City on his way back to the Dakota, and that is Walking on Thin Ice. This is a fabulous beat heavy with crazy wacky guitar of John Lennon's, but of course the bass on this is like the 12-inch mix. This was released obviously posthumously for John, and it literally says Walking on Thin Ice for John, only originally as a 12-inch. It wasn't on an album until years later. Comps: Yoko Ono, John Lennon. You have John Lennon on guitar, Lennon on keyboards, Hugh McCracken and Earl Slick on rhythm guitar. So John does that crazy lead guitar. Tony Levin, the great bass player who played the stick bass. Andy Newmark on drums, and Jack Douglas on also percussion, who co-produced this with Yoko and John Lennon. And it's just it's an amazing piece of work. Next we have Live at Budokan, a live record recorded in Japan. It doesn't have to be Budokan, I'm sure. And I pulled two records because that's what I do. This is 5 Nights in a Judo Arena. This is a bootleg. This is the Beatles when they performed at Budokan. There's Budokan. There's bootleg tapes going out. No official tape here. There's been, I have copies of them from Japan. What a great performance. This is the Beatles on stage at Budokan. Of course, there are a lot of great live albums from Budokan. Cheap Trick comes to mind. There's the Bob Dylan from the 78 tour. But I wanted to show this. This is not Budokan. This has an obi. This is an amazing record. During the 1974 Lost Weekend, when John Lennon was in LA with May Pang, Yoko went to Japan at a festival and recorded this. This came out as an import, was it 2 years ago? 2022. This is amazing. This is her live, Yoko Ono, the One Step Festival Special Edition from 1974. So this is 50 years old now. This basically has a lot of these great American musicians who were playing with John and Yoko around this time. Steve Kahn, Andy Muson, Rick Marotta, Steve Gadd. So you got two drummers. Steve Gadd, of course, one of the amazing drummers. Dan Grochnik, Randy Brecker, and Michael Brecker on trumpet and saxophone and flute. This is an incredible sounding record, and it's an incredible performance. Yoko Ono and the Plastic Ono Super Band, 1974. The next prompt is share a record with an island vibe, obviously for Japan. This is the Wamono series Japanese Groove Disc Guide. And this is a 3-volume set. I believe there might be more volumes by now, but I just have these wonderful 3 records with, look at this incredible artwork on each one. I just love this series. I mean, the minimalist and the aesthetic of Japanese artwork is just something that isn't lost on my interest. This is Japanese Jazz, Funk, and Rare Grooves, 1968 to 80. We have Japanese Funk, 1970 to 1977. And we got Disco and Boogie, 78 to 88. It's exactly what you think it would be. It's this dancey, disco, funky stuff out of Japan. Excellent comps, excellent records. They've done a series of these records. I've purchased these through Bandcamp from the Wamono site, and there are other ones now too. The next prompt is Monsoon Season. Show a record for a rainy day. This is one of my favorite discoveries in the last, it might be 6 years by now. There's a channel, he doesn't come around much, but his name is Sherv, and he turned me on to this record, and after he showcased it, I checked it out, and I fell in love with this record. This is a comp of this artist, and this is Maki Asakawa. She is a bluesy jazz sort of torch singer, and this is so good, so beautiful. There's a mood, a low-key vibe to it. She sings a lot in English, translating some Japanese, almost like jazzy pop folk songs to English. Not everything is in English. When I was listening to this the first time, all of a sudden my ears perked, because at the end of side A, this is 2 LPs, so obviously 4 sides. That's how it works, even in Japan. There's a song she does, a cover of a song called Govinda. And Govinda, a song I know extremely well, that's on the Radha Krishna Temple record, the record George Harrison produced for Apple Records, Hare Krishna here. Just happen to have it, easy, accessible. And it's a beautiful Indian chant, and that's on here. And the vibe of her bluesy jazz stuff with this little folky overtones is stunning. I've never seen this record in the store. I ordered it online sometime. Not sure when it came out, but it's a 2-record set, and every track is beautiful. And this really kind of touches me every time I play it. And I think it's the perfect record for a rainy day, even a sunny day. Good Sunday morning record, late night record with a glass of whiskey. Just love this record. Highly recommended. All right. Next, Wabi Sabi. I don't know how politically correct some of these comps are. Show a record that's imperfectly perfect. Well, I'm going to show this. This is an original copy on Capitol Records, the American. This is one of those few foreign language songs that was all over American radio. And it is kind of a cliche song. Some would say it's not politically correct, but it's from a Japanese artist. And it's so cliche because of the word and the title of the song. And this is Kyu Sakamoto's Sukiyaki. This was a massive hit in America. This was from the Coleman collection. I just love this record. It's Sukiyaki and Other Japanese Hits with Orchestra. I think this is a fantastic record. Of course, you know, any Beatle fans would love it just for that, you know, and Beach Boy fans for the that record. This happens to be a mono version. It was a massive hit, and even if you think you haven't heard it, my guess is you've heard it. Recorded in Tokyo. This came out, I'm thinking, in 1960 something. I'm thinking 66, 67. And it says here, produced in the USA by Dave Dexter Jr. So Dave Dexter, who gave us the American versions of the Beatles records, probably added reverb and everything else on it and compression. I don't know the history of that, but that seems the perfect record to show for this prompt. Origami Me. I love Japanese origami. In San Francisco, we have Japantown, which has these beautiful art stores and paper stores and a place you can get origami. Obviously, food restaurants and the famous bookstore. There's one here in Seattle as well. And I just love going through that and seeing the Japanese editions of books and paper products and origami, you know, folding out of these paper things. And this question is about show a record with intricate and interesting packaging. I'm going to show another John and Yoko with Niobe. This is the wedding album. This is my Japanese version, but I'm going to pull down my original version because this will give you a take on interesting packaging. Apple had a huge budget on this, man. The wedding album, obviously in '69, after John and Yoko get married, you open it up. It's in a box. Talk about, look at this, beautiful. That's a beautiful photograph of John and Yoko. The bed in peace. You've got the gatefold of the bed in peace. It's again one of their ambient, avant-garde, expressive records. That's not right for everyone. You have bagism, literally with a bag, with a piece of the wedding cake. Look at that beautiful photograph of their wedding cake. You have the press, a booklet of all the press, the good, bad, and the ugly reviews, and the cartoons, and the mockery, and the whole historic overview of John and Yoko's world at this point, with the bed in for peace, the getting married in Gibraltar, John and Yoko from the wedding album. But wait, there's more. Postcards. And Chimera did a reissue this several years ago. Another kind of booklet, poster booklet, and yet another, the actual wedding, poster of the wedding. In fact, this couple of these pictures, including that one, John recreated to one of his famous lithographs when he did the erotic lithographs as well as the portraits of John and Yoko. Origami is hard to put to change once you fold it up. So that is the origami comp. Origami comp. Next is Fusion Frenzy. Share an album that fuses genres. This was hard for me to think about, but I just want something, again, Japanese conceptually only, because it's a soundtrack to a film that takes place in Japan, and it's a very favorite film of mine. Of course, a lot of people know Lost in Translation. Sofia Coppola's great film with Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson. What a beautiful anti-romantic film. It's a touching film, and it just captures a few days in Tokyo, where Bill Murray, the quote actor, is doing was it Centauri, some kind of whiskey commercial in Japan, and Scarlett's there with her husband, who's a photographer, who kind of leaves her at the hotel, and it's not a love story, but there's some warmth to it. The soundtrack, of course, Sophia always picks great music, great pop, modern music, and on here you have Kevin Shields, Brian Wrightsell, Sebastian Teller, Kevin Shields again, My Bloody Valentine, Air, Jesus and Mary Chain. So you got kind of modern-ish music, 80s, 90s music, 2000s, and it's a fantastic soundtrack. So I'd pick it up, but it fuses the genres within the score, and I kind of like that. Next, we have Tokyo Nights, Show a Nightlife record. I just use this as an excuse to show this record. Again, Michael Poetry on Plastic turned me onto this. I didn't know anything about this, but this is an excellent rock, pop, I won't say garage psychedelic, but that kind of, it's 1968. It's one of the first big sort of rock bands in Japan, called the Jacks, called Vacant World. Now, cut by Kevin Gray. It kind of fell, wasn't on the radar for everyone. Michael turned me on to it. It's a wonderful package record, wonderful collection on Mesh Key Records. This is 222. This came out, so 2 years ago, and 1968 originally released. Very, look at that band. Look right out of like they're in Steppenwolf, or I think that's John Kay as a Japanese young boy. This is really, really good record. So if you want a good rock and roll record of Japanese rock and roll, not just pure pop, this is a fantastic record. It fits with the music that was happening here, probably in 1966 to 68 in America and in Britain. Really great. Show a record that you would play at the end of a busy day. This is another one where I didn't go with specifically a Japanese artist, but Japan adjacent. Adjacent seems the key word here. And this is a wonderful record, Rain Tree Crow. This is essentially a reunion album of the band Japan. This is with David Sylvian, Steve Jansen, who's David's brother, Richard Barbieri, and Mick Karn. So the original members of Japan put this together, did not put it under the Japanese name. There's a mood to this. This is an excellent record. Reissued a couple years ago. I think this would be a good, end of day, chill out record. Lastly, share a record to be remembered by, to play at your memorial. One song I definitely, I probably should put together a whole playlist, but Obi Japanese, based on the American Match Mystery Tour. The song Strawberry Fields Forever is a song, of course, Day in the Life too, from obviously Sgt. Pepper. But Strawberry Fields Forever, when I first heard it, I thought it was about a cemetery. And I remember it's the first time when I was 12 years old, I heard it on the radio late at night. I had a little clock radio next to me. And it's the first time I thought about death. I thought about that I'm not going to be here forever. So Strawberry Fields Forever is one of the songs I'd like to play, like someone to play at my memorial. So I hope they're watching this. Tell them if they're not. Anyway, Brian, Tokyo Record. Click the link below. Go subscribe to his channel. Do the kid a favor. No, but he does some good content, and I highly recommend it. So thanks for watching. Mazzy loves you.